Hey there guys, and welcome to today's review. Today we are going to be talking about a memoir that has to do with religion, specifically Christianity and Judaism. If you saw my school book haul, this book is going to be familiar to you because I talked about it there, but if you don't know, the book is Choosing My Religion, a memoir of family beyond belief by Stephen J. Dubner. This is the guy, if it sounds vaguely familiar, it's because this is the guy that helped write Freakonomics, if that's a thing that you're into. But he used to be an editor for the New York Times, and he was born into a very, very, very Christian family, and his father died when he was very little, and when he grew up, he started to reconnect with a Jewish kind of faith. And people kept saying, oh, you look like a Jew, you look like a Jew. And he was really confused by this until he found out that his parents had actually both been Jewish and converted into Christianity. And so this is his journey to reconnect with his faith and his family through their religious experience and how that affected their lives and then affects his life going forward. Because he decides to become Jewish because that's the faith that resonates with him, and he finds a lot of parallels with his family's life, and that's what this is about. It's supposed to be about. There's an issue here of my brain and the way that it works, and I mean an issue as I'm an English and writing major, and so when I read half as a reader and half as a writer, and this book for me was a struggle because there are so many things that my writer brain was just saying, why would you do that? Why would you make this choice? Because the book is really confusing, and if you're looking for a lot of depth in interreligious dialogue and stuff like that, there really isn't a lot of that in here. It's a very surface understanding of what Stephen goes through, and it begins talking about his father and his mother when they were young. So he's not really even in the beginning except to say, here's the premise, which I basically just told you, and here's the story. And so that's kind of weird. But you're like, okay, so we're getting the history lesson first so that we can understand and then move forward. Okay, fine. So it goes through and it talks about all of these things, and you know that it's based on all of this research that he's done, and so following his parents and their Jewish families and talking about their families, and so would have been Stephen's grandparents, and talking about how all that worked, and then why they converted. And, up into when they have all the kids, and he talks about growing up. And so you get halfway through this book before Stephen, who the memoir is technically about, even makes an appearance. And up until that point, it's all been backstory and history. And yes, it's very interesting history, but I was reading this to find his journey, and his journey really takes a while to start. And then after it starts, it gets very interesting. It talks about his youth and why he moved away from Christianity and towards Judaism. But then it backs up and starts talking about how he got interested in the subject to begin with, and how he found out a lot of the information that you already read in the beginning of the book. And so it ends up rehashing a lot of the information you already know as he discovers it, and how that informed his journey. And so it was just really confusing to have already read all this stuff, get his journey, and then read about it again through his eyes. I think for this, the idea might have been fine if he had just stuck to doing it along his own journey and how he found out about it, because then it just would have seemed very stop and stutter, or less like that. So that was just really weird to read. And then even when it does get interesting, for a really long time, it seems like he's being really, really aggressive towards his mother and towards Christianity. And that makes sense towards the end because he does address that. But you spend a very long period of time feeling uncomfortable, and that he is doing the same thing that he ends up accusing his family of, which was being very aggressive towards Judaism. And so there is a parallel, but since the parallel isn't addressed it just seems like right up until the end that it's just going to be a very aggressive denunciation of Christianity as opposed to an interreligious dialogue, which is what I really wanted to read about. So if you are looking for something that talks a lot about family history and why people might convert between the religions and some similarities and some of the tension points, this is a good book to read. I'm not saying that it's not. I did enjoy it and I did learn from it because he was very good about explaining all of these different facets of Judaism and Christianity as he encountered them, and also his own journey to learn how to become a Jew and reconnect with that history. He even goes to Poland at one point, which is very, very powerful. But if you're looking for something very deep and very thoughtful, this is not the book that I would pick up. It's not technically the same thing, but we did just read an excerpt for the class that this came from a book called The Jew and the Lotus, and that's interreligious dialogue between Judaism and Buddhism. But that was so much more in-depth and interesting than this, which really just frustrated me as a reader and a writer, because as a reader I got, tossed back and forth, and then the writer in me was going, why would you make that decision? You could have made this so much more interesting if you'd done it this way. So I really wanted to like this. I do like memoirs that make me think and make me wonder and teach me about things outside of myself. Memoir is sometimes the only nonfiction I ever want to read, ever. However, this was not very thrilling to me, and if this is a topic that interests you, this might be a good on-ramp into the discussion, but I wouldn't choose this book out of the others that you might have to choose from. So I think this might be the fastest review I have ever managed to do, so thank God. I hope that you are into memoir, because I will be talking about a bunch more of the memoirs that come from this class, because there are some of them that really, really excite me. This one didn't so much, even though I was optimistic going into it, but hopefully in the future, the memoirs that I have to show you on this topic are better written and more in-depth and thoughtful, because that's really what I'm here for, and otherwise I'm gonna have to go searching for myself. If you know of a book besides A Jew and the Lotus that is on the topic of interreligious dialogue and faith and family, but is more in depth about how religions talk to each other, please let me know down in the comments, because like I said, this is very interesting to me, but this didn't do it for me. So help a girl out. Thanks guys. Bye.